The IAEA have found evidence of illegal nuclear activity at a site that Iran claimed was only used to make carpets. The report from Israeli media appears to confirm accusations made by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in his address to the United Nations last September. In that speech, Netanyahu said Iran was using the facility to store nuclear equipment and material. To talk more about this latest escalation between Iran and the West, we welcome UK and Europe correspondent Jonathan Sachredoti, live from London, and Hal Kempfer, retired Marine Corps intelligence officer and president of the strategic risk management firm KIP. Hal, we'll start with you. We'll get to the tanker incident in just a minute. But first, we want your thoughts on that report that the IAEA basically confirms that Prime Minister Netanyahu was correct, that there has been nuclear activity at the site that he pointed out to. Does this prove that Israeli intelligence knows more about Iranian nuclear program than UN inspectors?
Tal, I think Israeli intelligence knows more about Iran than pretty much any other actor in the region. This is a major threat for Israel, and they have always had just an absolutely first-class intelligence collection effort throughout Iran. One thing this does is the IAEA they were tipped off about this warehouse, and they kind of drug their feet a little bit going in to do inspections, which gave the Iranians an opportunity to basically clean the place up. However, with that said, when they get there, they did find evidence of radioactive materials, which means that the Iranians did lie about saying it was only a carpet warehouse. So they have caught them in that lie, and that in and of itself is a violation.
Netanyahu had just said that there would be more evidence coming soon. Jonathan, let's get to you right now. We want to talk about the incident at sea yesterday. The British were prepared for this possibility, despite their comments that they're not sure about escorts going further. They actually did have a frigate that was shadowing their tanker. The UK now increasing the threat level. What exactly is the Minister of Defense saying?
Well, the emphasis is on de-escalation, but of course, escalation isn't really within British control at the moment, bearing in mind what took place last night in the Strait of Hormuz. That's a vital seaway where so much of the world's oil passes through. So with Iranian control over that area and no freedom for international ships to pass through there, there could be huge economic results for the rest of the world. And that's why there's now this suggestion that there could be an international force put together to help police free passage through that very narrow stretch of water. However, the British, as you said, don't particularly want to be part of that because they don't believe that escalation is what will help to sort this out. There seems to be a game of brinkmanship going on whereby Iran and the West are eyeing each other up to see who will blink first. Donald Trump imposing these new sanctions on Iranian oil. Britain last week helping to seize that tanker with Iranian oil off Gibraltar, but pointing out over and over again that they were doing so not because it was Iranian oil and not because of where it started out, but because of where it was going, which they say was Syria, and thus they believe it was breaking EU sanctions on delivering goods to Syria. But all of this rings hollow perhaps in Iran, and Iran said that Britain will regret that action.
Right. Hal, Iran warned the UK of consequences following that seizure of the Iranian supertanker that Jonathan mentions. And just like we asked you after the downing of the American drone a couple of weeks ago, do you think that this could be a game changer in the tensions around the Persian Gulf?
Tal, it certainly is an escalation. Bringing those boats, and one thing to note is, they're IRGC boats. They're not Navy boats. And the IRGC chain of command is a little bit different. And I would say in many ways, the government has a lot less command and control over what those boats could do. The chances of something going wrong, somebody opening fire, and it wasn't just, major weapon systems. We're talking mounted machine guns. There's all sorts of things that could have been employed that could have led to a serious confrontation at sea, and that could have escalated very quickly. And there's about 15 to 30 British-owned vessels that go through the straits about every day. And then you add on everybody else, there's a chance for a major disruption of global supply chains.
Jonathan, let's get back to you. You've been following reactions there in London. Does it seem to you that given this incident that the UK could potentially become the first European party to maybe break with the 2015 nuclear deal? Is there an indication that we might see this happening, even though you just mentioned a moment ago that the UK doesn't really want to inflame things even more?
Well, if it does happen, it seems that the UK will be dragged into this against its will. And remember that things aren't simple domestically at the moment. There's effectively no proper government and no proper prime minister right now. Theresa May, having resigned quite some time ago, still occupying the seat of prime minister. The two contenders to replace her, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, one, the current foreign secretary, who we've heard commenting on this in that capacity, the other, a past foreign secretary, both of them trying to talk up their own credentials as prime minister, so saying they need to invest more in defense, particularly in naval defense, things like that. It's hard to know whether what they're saying is to play to a domestic audience at home in order to win those Conservative Party member votes during the leadership election, whether they're aimed at Iran, whether they're aimed at placating America. At the moment, it's rather tough to tell what exactly Britain's intentions might be with Iran, though it is clear that what they want to make clear to everybody is that they do not wish to see an escalation. They do not wish to break off from the rest of the P5+1, minus America, on sticking to the JCPOA.
Jonathan Sacerdoti and Hal Kempfer, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate this.